He laughed at her in court, but had no idea she was the lawyer about to destroy him. Sometimes the people we underestimate the most are the ones who've carried the heaviest weight. She walked into that courtroom alone. No fancy suit, no powerful allies, just truth, and a voice no one expected to hear. He laughed, because to him, she was just another face. But what happened next? It flipped the room and challenged everything he thought he knew about power, justice, and who belongs at the table. The courtroom smelled like old wood, cold air, and quiet fear. High ceilings loomed overhead, their corners swallowed in shadows. Dust floated lazily through the sunlight slicing in from narrow windows, like the room was frozen in time, still haunted by verdicts that had broken lives long before today. The audience benches creaked beneath whispers and shifting weight. Rows of polished shoes tapped anxiously on scuffed linoleum floors. The front row was packed with uniformed officers, arms crossed, faces stiff with the kind of silence that didn't need words to speak power. Behind them sat courtroom regulars, reporters, worn-out lawyers, and locals who came to see drama like it was theater. But there was no laughter here, just eyes, cold ones, judging ones. And near the back, one pair of hands trembled around a purse strap. Tanya Bell, a mother trying to stay strong. Her lips moved in prayer, her eyes locked on the door. Then it opened. 2 deputies walked in, and between them, Zariah, 17 years old, in borrowed clothes and scuffed sneakers. Her chin held high, but barely. Her wrists were still marked from where the cuffs had bitten in, the red imprint of the system already etched on her skin. The room shifted, not with sympathy, but suspicion, like they'd already decided who she was. Another one, some eyes said. Of course she did it, others whispered without speaking. But it was the laugh that cut deeper than any look. From the front row, Detective Cole Mercer didn't even try to hide it. A dry, dismissive scoff that rolled through the room like poison. Figures, he muttered, nudging the rookie beside him. Can't teach class to a criminal. Zariah's steps didn't falter, but her jaw tightened. She scanned the courtroom, not for pity, but for truth. For someone, anyone, to see past the lie she'd been wrapped in. No one met her gaze. The judge finally looked up. State of Georgia versus Zariah Bell. The words rang out like a hammer. Zariah stepped up. Her voice was steady, but her world was falling apart beneath her feet. I didn't steal that car, she said, before the public defender could even blink. It was a mentorship program. My mentor gave me the keys. I was supposed to be there. The judge sighed. Miss Bell, this is not your time to speak. Cole leaned back with that same smug grin, arms folded across his chest. Like this was all a joke. Like she was just the latest punchline in his career. But Zariah didn't lower her eyes, because something bigger than fear sparked in her chest that day. It wasn't just a courtroom anymore. It was a line in the sand, and she had just crossed it. The courthouse doors swung shut behind Zariah with a heavy thud that sounded like a sentence. Her mother tried to catch her arm as they stepped into the hallway, but Zariah pulled away. Z, slow down. Baby, please, Tanya said, nearly out of breath. We gotta talk to that lawyer. He didn't say a word in there. We don't need him, Mama. Zariah's voice cracked, low and sharp like glass under pressure. He don't even know my name. She kept walking, fast, almost like if she stopped moving, she'd fall apart. Reporters lined the corridor like vultures, but no one lifted a camera. No one cared about a black girl falsely accused, at least not until she snapped or cried or did something that could make headlines. Outside, the city didn't even notice her. Just another teenager with fire in her eyes and no place to put it. At home, the silence was louder than the courtroom. Tanya cooked, but neither of them ate. The food stayed on the plate, untouched. A pot of rice, some green beans. Zoraya stared at her notebook on the kitchen table, the pages full of law notes from her mock trial club. She used to dream of Harvard Law, used to believe she could make it. Now, she was Googling how to expunge a juvenile record and what happens if you're found guilty with no evidence. Maybe we could reach out to the mentor? Tanya offered, barely above a whisper. Maybe he could come forward, tell them it was part of the program. He moved to Atlanta last month. His number's disconnected, Zoraya said flatly. I already tried. Tanya sat down slowly, her body folding like paper. Then we'll fight. We'll get someone who will speak. Zoraya nodded, but inside something different was growing. Not hope, strategy. She started spending hours at the library, not for school but for survival, studying case law, reading transcripts, learning how the people with power spoke, how they twisted truth into narrative. One night, she stayed until closing, and the librarian, a tired black woman with kind eyes, slid her a heavy book from behind the desk. Federal Procedure Manual, she said. If you're serious. Zoraya opened the first page like it was a weapon. Cole Mercer, meanwhile, didn't give her a second thought. To him, she was just one more face in the files. One more arrest to keep the numbers looking good. He tossed the report in a drawer that overflowed with names, incidents, complaints that no one followed up on. He had other things to deal with, like the rookie officer who kept asking too many questions. You ever wonder why every other case we pull is from the same side of town? The rookie asked during a patrol. Why we never stop anyone in those suburbs, even when they speed right past us? Cole smirked. Because those folks don't break laws in broad daylight. The rookie stared at him. Or maybe because they can without getting caught. Cole hit the brakes hard. The car jerked. You listen to me, he growled. This job ain't about feelings. It's about order. And people like her. He pointed out the window, where a group of black teens walked past a corner store. They don't respect that. So we remind them who's in charge. The rookie didn't say anything after that. But he watched. And he remembered. 2 years passed. Zoraya's record was sealed. Not cleared, sealed. Which meant anyone who wanted to could still find it with the right connections. She got denied from every Ivy League school. Not because of grades, not because of test scores, but because the system had left a stain on her that she couldn't scrub clean. So she pivoted. Community college. Night shifts at the diner. Mock trial on weekends, where she wiped the floor with anyone who underestimated her. She stopped trying to be perfect. She started preparing to win. At 22, she got into law school. A full ride, at a place that looked nothing like the courtrooms she'd been dragged through. Marble floors, students in press blazers with last names that opened doors. Zoraya kept her head down, but she never forgot. Especially not when she opened her casebook one day and saw his name. Mercer versus Jordan. A civil rights case. A man paralyzed during an arrest. Same city. Same officer. Her breath caught in her throat. She read every page like it was a confession. The force used. The excuses. The way Mercer had claimed fear, despite being twice the man's size. She followed the breadcrumbs. There were other cases, civil suits quietly settled. Complaints, dismissed. All connected by a single thread. Him. She stayed up that night, printing records, highlighting statements, building a map of everything they'd buried. And then the news broke. Detective Cole Mercer was under federal investigation. Zoraya didn't flinch. She opened her laptop, logged into the pro bono law clinic she'd just joined, and signed up for the intake. Cole showed up in court 6 months later. Not in uniform, but in handcuffs. The press swarmed the building. Headlines buzzed. Veteran officer accused of excessive force, civil rights violations. He still wore that old smirk, but it didn't reach his eyes anymore. Then the doors opened, and Zariah walked in. Same eyes, same fire. This time, though, she was wearing the blazer that fit, and every head in the room turned. Cole's smirk vanished. The silence when she walked in was different now. Not the silence of judgment, but of disbelief. Cole blinked, confused at first. Then his jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed like he was trying to place her. And then he did. His lips parted. No! Zariah didn't blink. She set her files on the desk, opened the folder slowly, deliberately. Defense counsel for Mr. Jordan is ready, Your Honor. The judge glanced at Cole, then back to her. Miss Bell, are you prepared to proceed with opening arguments? She looked up, and for the first time, her voice echoed through the courtroom like it belonged there. I've been preparing for this day since the last time I stood in front of a bench I didn't deserve to be in front of. A few gasps cut through the room. Tanya was there this time, in the back row, hands clutched tight in her lap. She'd bought a new dress just to watch her baby stand tall in a place meant to crush her. Her eyes filled with tears, but not from fear. From pride. Cole leaned toward his lawyer. Get her disqualified. She's got history with me. His lawyer shook his head. Already tried. She disclosed everything. Judge ruled it wasn't grounds. Said if anything, it made her more qualified. Cole's face twisted. She's got an agenda. She's got receipts, the lawyer muttered under his breath. Zariah turned her attention to the jury, her eyes moving from face to face. 12 strangers, holding her future client's justice in their hands. When you hear the name Cole Mercer, she began, you're going to hear words like decorated, respected veteran. But today, I'm going to show you what those words don't tell you. About the families torn apart. About the teenagers thrown into the system. About the bodies left broken. While this man laughed on the steps of every courthouse he walked out of. Cole's attorney objected, but it was too late. The jury had already felt it, and so had he. Over the next 2 days, she presented the case like she was painting a mural of pain. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't grandstand. She built, one fact at a time, one testimony, one moment. The mother of a disabled veteran broke down on the stand. A young man who'd been wrongfully arrested described the nightmares that never left. Zariah's own sealed record? She admitted it publicly under oath and tied it back to a pattern Cole had repeated for a decade. This man, she said, pointing to him, doesn't just enforce the law, he distorts it. He wears a badge not to serve, but to silence. And no one stopped him, because no one ever challenged him. Until now. Cole finally cracked during cross-examination. You think I wanted to ruin lives? He shouted, sweat beading on his forehead. You think I chose where I got sent? I did what I had to do to keep order. Zariah cut in, voice cold. Is that what you call it? Order. The judge warned her to keep composure. But the jury already heard it. The truth behind his words. The pain in his past didn't excuse what he'd become. Outside the courtroom, protests swelled. People held signs with names, some forgotten, some still fighting. Inside, Cole sat with his head down. Zariah stood before the jury once more, her closing statement quieter than anyone expected. I don't want you to punish him because he's a bad man. I want you to see that the system gave him power, and he used it to break people. Good people. And if we don't draw the line here, it never stops. It never stops. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, you could feel the shift in the air. Guilty. On all charges. Zariah didn't smile. Not even when the courtroom broke into gasps and murmurs. She just exhaled. like she'd been holding her breath for 5 years. Cole was taken out in cuffs. This time, no one laughed. Outside the courthouse, reporters flooded her, cameras flashing like lightning. Miss Bell, Miss Bell, how does it feel, facing the officer who once arrested you? Zariah looked straight into the lens of the biggest camera. It's not about facing him, she said. It's about facing the system, and letting it know we're not afraid anymore. That clip went viral in 2 hours. She didn't care. She was already back at the clinic the next morning, taking on another case. Different courtroom, same fire. The courtroom was empty now. Echoes of the verdict still hung in the air, like smoke from a fire no one had quite put out. Zariah stood alone in the gallery, staring at the seat where Cole Mercer had sat just hours ago. She thought she'd feel more. But justice didn't come with fanfare. It came with exhaustion. Outside, the crowd had moved on. The signs were gone. The chants had faded. But the questions? They were just beginning. Tanya waited for her by the courthouse steps. "You did it, baby," she whispered, pulling her close. "You did what none of them ever could." Zariah nodded, resting her head on her mother's shoulder for just a second. "But it doesn't bring back the years. Or the others. That wasn't your job. You opened the door. Now let the rest walk through." The next morning, the headlines weren't just about Cole. They were about her. From defendant to defender. The young black attorney who took down a racist cop. Zariah Bell. Justice has a new voice. Some praised her. Some dragged her. The internet did what the internet does. But what hit hardest was the letter that came in a plain white envelope with no return address. Inside, one sentence, scrawled in sharp, angry handwriting. "You're next." No signature. No fingerprints. Zariah stared at it for a long time before placing it in a folder marked Threats 01. She didn't flinch. Didn't tell her mother. Just kept going. Because there were still clients to see. Still kids walking into courtrooms with no one in their corner. But then something strange happened. A knock on her office door. Late. Just past 7 p.m. She opened it expecting a client. It was Cole's daughter. Maybe 17. Soft brown curls. Pale skin. Eyes red from crying. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. Zariah stood frozen, one hand on the doorframe. Why would you come here?" The girl swallowed. "Because my father's not the man I thought he was. And I need someone to help me understand what he did." Zariah's first instinct was to shut the door, to tell her to leave. But she didn't. She stepped aside. They sat in silence for a while. Then the girl Hannah started talking. About growing up in a house where fear was disguised as rules. Where anger was discipline and love had conditions. "My mom left when I was 10. She said she was tired of pretending he was a good man." Zariah listened. Not as a lawyer, but as someone who knew what it felt like to carry a wound that wouldn't close. Hannah asked a question that caught her off guard. "Do you believe people like him can change?" Zariah didn't answer right away. She thought of the victims, the broken trust, the look on Cole's face when the cuffs clicked. "I believe people can choose to change," she finally said. "But not everyone does." The girl nodded slowly. "Then maybe I can be the one who does." Zariah walked her out an hour later, pressed a card into her hand. "If you ever feel like becoming a lawyer instead of running from one, call me." A week passed. Then another. Threats started stacking. Some online, some mailed. One night, someone keyed her car, scratched the words liar across the side in big, jagged letters. She filed the report, told the officer she'd handle it herself. But she couldn't shake the feeling, like the system she'd stood up to wasn't done with her yet. Then came the invitation. A citywide police accountability forum. Zoraya had been asked to speak on a panel, alongside activists, legal scholars, and law enforcement. She almost declined, until she saw who else was listed. Detective Marcus Hale, one of the few black officers who had once been Cole's partner, and one of the only ones who spoke out against him before the trial. Zoraya remembered his name, remembered his testimony. Honest, reluctant, brave. She said yes. The room was packed that night. Tension buzzed in the air like static. Hale spoke first. Calm, measured. Not every cop wears hate on his sleeve, he said. But too many stay silent when others do. Then it was her turn. Zoraya stepped up to the mic, looked out at the faces. Some angry, some tired, some just waiting. I didn't become a lawyer to punish cops, she said. I became one to protect us. The ones the system forgets. The ones it fears. The ones it crushes and calls it order. The room went still. And if that means standing in courtrooms until my voice goes hoarse, so be it. Afterward, Hale approached her quietly. You ever think about running for DA? He asked. Zoraya blinked, laughed once. You're joking. I'm not. She looked down at her worn shoes, the same ones she wore when she got sworn in. Then back at him. Ask me again when I don't feel like the whole city wants me gone. He smiled. Then I'll be asking again real soon. The press was still buzzing. Cole Mercer's name, now stained with guilt and disgrace, was splashed across every headline. But Zoraya knew better than to think it was over. The fight wasn't in the verdict. It was in the aftermath. And it would continue long after the news cameras packed up and moved on. Her office became a sanctuary for those who had nowhere else to turn. Victims of a broken system that hadn't quite figured out how to stop breaking. Zoraya kept her head down, stayed focused, and answered every phone call, met every family, stood for every truth. The truth was, she didn't just want to be remembered for winning the case. She wanted to be remembered for giving the voiceless a voice, whether they were clients or strangers across the street who'd never walked into her office. Late one evening, as Zoraya sat in her dimly lit office, sorting through paperwork, a soft knock echoed through the door. Hannah stepped in again. This time, there was a quiet confidence in her steps. She wasn't the fragile girl Zoraya had first met weeks ago. She was someone different. I'm ready to start, she said. Zoraya looked up, her eyes softening. Ready to start what? Fighting. Like you taught me. With my voice. With my future. Zoraya smiled, stood up slowly, and took a deep breath. Then let's begin. They worked through the night, mapping out Hannah's path, her future in law, in activism. The young girl was ready now, not just for change, but to become it. Zoraya had sparked the fire in her, but Hannah had learned how to keep it burning. The following month, Zoraya was invited to speak at a national conference for legal reform. It wasn't a victory lap. It wasn't about her anymore. It was about what was coming next. About a new generation of lawyers, of activists, of ordinary people who understood that change was more than just a word. She stood on the stage, in front of a crowd of hundreds, her heart pounding. But this time her voice was steady. The work we do doesn't just change the lives of those we serve, she said, her gaze sweeping over the audience. It's about lifting each other up. It's about showing up together. We're only as strong as the voices we amplify. And that means you. Every one of you can make a difference. The crowd was silent, but she could feel it, the energy in the room, the collective understanding. They were ready. Don't let the silence of the system define you. Don't let the injustice become your norm. Stand up. Speak up. Together we can make them listen. We will make them listen. As she left the stage, the applause felt different. It wasn't for her. It was for them. For everyone who was ready to take the fight forward. And for the first time, Zariah didn't feel like a lone warrior. She felt like part of something bigger. Before you go, I want to remind you, if this story touched you, if you felt the truth in it, share it. Hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. By sharing these videos, you might be the one who touches someone's life in ways you can't imagine. If you're watching this and feeling like your voice doesn't matter, know this: you are the change. You are the difference. And the more we speak up, the more we break the chains of silence. So please share this. Encourage others to do the same, because together we can make real change. And that starts with each of us speaking out, standing up, and fighting for the future. Watch more videos on this channel. There's so much more coming. Stories of struggle, strength, and redemption. And maybe, just maybe, one of these stories will be the one that sparks a change in you, in someone else, or in the world. Remember, your voice matters, so use it. The lesson is clear: we are the change we've been waiting for. Speak up, stand together, and no matter how tough the fight gets, we will always win when we fight with each other, not against each other. And with that, Zariah Bell walked into a future brighter than any victory she could have imagined, because the fight, at last, was only just beginning.